My neighbor left a package at my door every Friday. After she died, I opened one and realized she had been protecting my family for years. Every Friday for almost 3 years, my neighbor left a small brown package outside my apartment. No note, no explanation, just my name written on the front. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I returned the first package. She knocked on my door that evening and said, "Please don't return them." I asked what was inside. She smiled. "Nothing dangerous." That wasn't exactly an answer. I opened the first one after she left. Inside was a children's book. My daughter was 6 at the time. I assumed my neighbor, Evelyn, was simply being kind. The following Friday, another package arrived. A box of crayons, then a winter coat, then a pair of expensive sneakers. I eventually asked her why she kept buying things for my daughter. She always gave me the same answer. Because somebody should. I found that strange. Evelyn wasn't particularly close to us. She was an older woman who lived alone across the hall. She rarely went outside. She never had visitors. But she always seemed to know when something was wrong. When my daughter was sick, Evelyn somehow knew. When my husband lost his job, she knew before I told anyone. And when we had money problems, she quietly left grocery gift cards under our door. I started feeling uncomfortable. It was too much. So one Friday, when another package arrived, I didn't open it. I took it straight to her apartment. She didn't answer. I knocked again. Nothing. I called her phone. It went directly to voicemail. The next morning, an ambulance arrived. Evelyn had died in her sleep. She had no close family nearby. The building manager asked if I would help clean out her apartment. I agreed. That's when I discovered the packages weren't the strangest thing in her home. Her walls were covered with photographs. Photographs of my family, my daughter at school, my husband leaving for work, me buying groceries, us walking our dog. I felt sick. Why had she been watching us? Then I found a filing cabinet. Inside were folders. One had my name. Another had my husband's. The final one had my daughter's name. I opened mine. Inside were copies of police reports, medical records, bank statements, old photographs, and newspaper articles. I didn't understand any of it. Then I found something that made my hands shake. A photograph of my husband standing outside a courthouse. The date was 8 years earlier, before we met. Under the photograph was a note. "He cannot know I am watching." I immediately called my husband. He didn't answer. I called again, still nothing. Then I opened his folder. That's when I learned the truth. My husband had been using a different name when he was younger. He had been arrested for financial fraud. But the charges had been dropped because a key witness disappeared. That witness was Evelyn. She had been the accountant for the company he defrauded. She had testified against him. Then she vanished from the case. For years, I thought my husband had simply moved to another state before we met. He hadn't. He had changed his name, changed his career, and started over. But Evelyn had found him. She had recognized him immediately. She didn't expose him because she was afraid he'd retaliate. Instead, she watched. She collected evidence, and she kept an eye on my daughter. Then I found the final folder. It wasn't about my husband. It was about me. Inside was a copy of my marriage certificate, and underneath it was a handwritten note. "She doesn't know what he did." I sat on Evelyn's floor for almost an hour. Then my husband finally called. "Where are you?" I said. "I'm in Evelyn's apartment." Silence. "What did you find?" That was when I knew. He knew exactly what she had been doing. I asked him one question. "Who did you hurt?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Come home." I didn't. I took my daughter to my sister's house. That evening, federal investigators contacted me. Evelyn had apparently arranged everything before she died. She had sent copies of her evidence to investigators. She had also left instructions that if anything happened to her, the evidence should be given to me. My husband was arrested 2 weeks later. The old fraud case was reopened. Investigators discovered he'd continued using stolen identities and fraudulent accounts for years. The missing witness from his original case was eventually located too. She had been living under another name. She confirmed everything. Evelyn had spent nearly a decade protecting herself. Then she realized my husband had started a family, and she made a decision. She wouldn't let my daughter become another victim. That's why she sent the packages, the books, the clothes, the food. She wasn't spoiling my child. She was making sure that if my husband disappeared, my daughter would have something. A coat, shoes, food, a little security. The final package arrived 2 weeks after Evelyn's funeral. This time there was a note. I opened it with trembling hands. It said, "I'm sorry you had to learn this way. I wanted your daughter to remember me as the woman who gave her presents, not the woman who knew something terrible about her father." I cried for a long time, because I finally understood why Evelyn had always smiled when my daughter thanked her. She knew she might not be around forever, and she wanted one innocent child to have at least one adult nearby who was quietly looking out for her. I never got to thank Evelyn, but I still have every package she sent. My daughter is 12 now. She remembers Evelyn as the neighbor who always brought her something on Fridays. She doesn't know the whole story yet. Maybe one day she will. But for now, whenever Friday comes, my daughter still asks me, "Do you think Miss Evelyn would have brought me something today?" And I always tell her the same thing. I think she would. If you discovered your quiet neighbor had secretly been protecting your family from someone you trusted, would you feel grateful for what she did, or betrayed that she watched your family without telling you?